It's 3 p.m. on a Saturday and Marcus is watching something strange happen in his vintage record shop. A group of 20-somethings is standing in the listening booth, not buying, just experiencing. They're photographing the store's hand-painted signs. They're asking about the story behind his curation. They're spending 45 minutes browsing and then they leave without buying a single thing. Marcus has owned this shop for 18 years. He's seen trends come and go. But this generation that loves his store but doesn't spend in it, he can't figure it out. Here's the signal Marcus is missing. Gen Z is projected to add $2.7 trillion in spending power. Trillion. With a T. And 61% of them now prefer discovering products in store. Wait. Did you catch that? The generation raised on smartphones and 2-day shipping prefers brick-and-mortar discovery. That's not a typo. It's a reversal. But here's where it gets complicated. Despite loving local shops, Gen Z spends less money locally than any other generation. The paradox is real, and it's costing small businesses millions. Today we're decoding what Gen Z actually wants and the specific moves that turn their window shopping into real revenue for your business. Let's start with who we're actually talking about. Gen Z, born between 1997 and 2012, is entering their peak earning and spending years right now. And the assumptions most business owners have about them? Almost completely wrong. They're not purely digital natives who hate physical stores. According to PwC's Consumer Trends Research, Gen Z shopping breaks down like this: 37% primarily in-store, 28% online, and 36% hybrid. Here's the number that should stop every local business owner in their tracks. In-store shopping intention among Gen Z rose 10 points year over year, from 27 to 37%. It's not incremental growth. That's a fundamental shift in behavior. The generation everyone wrote off as Amazon only is walking back into physical spaces. They want to touch products, experience atmospheres, but, and this is the critical but, something strange happens between discovery and purchase. They browse local. They experience local. And then they buy somewhere else. JP Morgan's payment data reveals something striking. Less than 45% of Gen Z in-store spending happens within 10 miles of home. For every other generation, it's over 50%. So they're visiting more physical stores, but spending their money further away. They love the experience of local without actually supporting local with their wallets. This isn't because they don't care. According to Penfriend's consumer research, Gen Z highly values honesty and quickly detects hypocrisy. They want proof, not promises. And that's where most small businesses fail the test. They say shop local but can't explain why. They claim sustainability but can't show receipts. Gen Z notices every single time. PwC's research puts it bluntly: consistency between stated values and actual business practices ranks highest for Gen Z. They research companies before purchasing. They check alignment between marketing messages and reported corporate behavior. This isn't casual scrolling, it's due diligence, and small businesses rarely pass. Now here's where the opportunity lives. 3/4 of Gen Z say sustainability is more important than brand name when making purchases. Let that sink in. According to Research and Metrics 2025 study, 75% of Gen Z prioritizes sustainability over brand recognition. Your unknown small business can beat Nike if you prove your practices. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Claiming sustainability isn't enough. You need specific numbers, verifiable sourcing, actual receipts for your environmental claims. Here's the economic reality. Gen Z cut overall spending by 13% between January and April 2025. They're not broke, they're selective. When money gets tight, Gen Z doesn't stop buying. They just buy differently. fewer impulse purchases, more research per dollar spent, and way more skepticism about marketing claims. Over 60% of Gen Z discovers new brands through social platforms rather than traditional advertising, not search engines, not billboards, social media, but not the way you think. They're not responding to polished brand accounts with perfect grids. They're discovering through micro-influencers authentic reviews and behind-the-scenes content that feels real. The algorithm doesn't reward production value, it rewards authenticity. That shaky phone video of you making the product, it outperforms the professional ad every single time. So let's talk about what you can actually do with all this. First, and this might hurt, you probably need to rethink what success looks like in your physical space. Consider creating discoverable experiences, not just retail floors. Gen Z wants to explore, photograph, and share. Every corner of your space could be a content opportunity they broadcast for free. But here's the nuance, and this is important. That photogenic corner means nothing if your practices don't match your aesthetics. Gen Z will find the disconnect. They always do. Here's a move that tends to work well. Document your sustainability practices with specific numbers. Not "we're eco-friendly." Try "we source 80% of materials within 50 miles. NUK's retail research shows Gen Z doesn't trust adjectives. They trust data points. Specific percentages. Name suppliers. Verifiable claims they can check themselves. Consider partnering with micro-influencers in your local area, people with 1,000 to 10,000 followers. They often convert better than celebrities because their audiences actually trust them. These partnerships don't require massive budgets. Often a free product and genuine relationship outperforms paid placements. Authenticity scales down, not up. Now, about that hybrid shopping behavior. The 36% who mix online and in-store. Your digital presence and physical space need to feel like one conversation, not two different businesses. Consider enabling online browsing with in-store pickup. Let them research at 2 a.m., then experience the product in person the next day. Bridge the gap. Don't force a choice between channels. Remember, 60% of Gen Z finds new brands through platforms, not search. Your Google business profile matters, but your Instagram and TikTok presence might matter more. And I want to be clear here. Every business situation is different. What works for a vintage shop might not work for a service business. The principles hold, but execution is yours to adapt. Here's something that often gets overlooked. Consistency across every touch point. Your social voice, your in-store experience, your packaging, your customer service. They all need to match. If you're wondering where to start, this approach tends to work. Pick one sustainability practice you already do and document it thoroughly. Then share that story everywhere. Same narrative, every platform. If you're finding this useful, by the way, hitting subscribe helps more small business owners find these signals. We put out new episodes each week diving into exactly this kind of data. Here's something the data keeps showing us. Gen Z's stated preferences do translate to purchases when businesses meet their proof threshold. Values washing doesn't work. Real practices do. Some researchers debate whether Gen Z actually follows through on sustainability preferences when prices are higher, but the data suggests they do, when they trust the claim is real. The premium doesn't scare them off. The doubt does. If you're charging more for sustainable practices, you'd better be able to explain exactly where that premium goes. Many businesses find success with radical transparency about pricing. Some even break down costs: 40% materials, 30% labor, 20% overhead, 10% profit. Gen Z respects that honesty. Let's talk about the timing. Gen Z is still in their early spending years. The habits they form now, the businesses they learn to trust, those relationships compound over decades. The $2.7 trillion in spending power isn't here yet, it's projected. This generation is still building careers, forming households. The businesses that earn their trust now win for decades. So no, the return on Gen Z marketing won't show up in this quarter's numbers. But the businesses ignoring this demographic entirely? They're optimizing for irrelevance. Think of Gen Z investment like compound interest. Small deposits now, major returns later. But like any investment, results vary based on your specific situation and market. Here's a framework that many businesses find useful. Audit every customer touchpoint from Gen Z's eyes. Are you discoverable on social? Is your space photographable? Can they verify your claims? Let me bring this back to Marcus, the record shop owner we started with. Those kids spending 45 minutes without buying? They're not the problem. His conversion strategy is, what if Marcus invited them to share their experience online and tagged the shop? What if he hosted a listening party that became content for their feeds? The visit I is the marketing if you capture it. The 45-minute browser who posts to their 2,000 followers. That's worth more than a single album sale. That's reach money can't buy. If you're thinking about it correctly. Remember, Gen Z's in-store return isn't about nostalgia, it's about experience economy. They want to feel something that a product listing can't provide. That's your advantage over Amazon. Consider this. What can someone experience in your space that they absolutely cannot get from a screen? Lead with that. Build your Gen Z strategy around the untransferable moment. And here's the final piece. Maybe the most important one. Gen Z doesn't want to be marketed to. They want to be included. Collaborated with. Made part of the story, not just sold to. Ask them what they want to see. Feature their content on your channels. Let them influence your product development. The line between customer and collaborator, Gen Z doesn't see it. One approach that tends to resonate. Create a simple feedback mechanism and actually use it publicly. You asked, we made isn't just a hashtag, it's a trust-building strategy. So here's where we land. Gen Z isn't a mystery, they're a paradox with a pattern. They want local, but only if local earns it. They want physical, but connected to digital. They want sustainability, but verified, not claimed. The $2.7 trillion is coming. The question isn't whether Gen Z will spend. It's where. The businesses that understand this paradox, they'll capture those dollars. The ones that don't, well, they'll wonder where everyone went. This is Small Business Signals, finding the patterns in the noise so you can build something that lasts. I'll see you next week. Remember, this content is for informational purposes only and is not financial advice.